I've been programming for over a decade now, with 4 years professionally at Facebook and several more bouncing around various startups. As both an engineer and manager, one of the key skills I've worked on is being able to coach people at various stages of their programming and development journey. In this video, we're going to focus on the beginning part of that journey, which is how to learn to code. Specifically, we'll begin with defining a framework for how you should start, along with a story of how I personally use this framework. We'll then follow that up with 4 pieces of advice for how you can maximize your success using this framework, as well as maximize your success of your whole coding journey. Let's get started. The most important part of this entire process starts right at the beginning, and maybe somewhat surprisingly, that's identifying something that you enjoy that is not programming. Maybe that's basketball, maybe it's cars, maybe it's plants, maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, I want you to go ahead and write it down on a piece of paper. No need to overthink this, it's not a trick question. You can also go back and change it, but for now, just write something down. For myself, I'm gonna write down music. Now, I'd like you to think about some problem related to that area that you enjoy. Something where, if that problem were fixed, it would increase your personal enjoyment of that area even more. As an example, I'll walk you through my first experience with doing this. On the surface, the story might not sound super related to programming, but I promise it'll get there. I was about 2 years into my programming journey, and at the time, I was super into music, specifically hip-hop and indie alternative. Back then, blogs like Pretty Much Amazing and Two Dope Boys were super popular. I even briefly wrote for a blog called Pigeons and Planes. All of this is to say, I was truly into this stuff. This was in the era before Spotify, where people had to find and download individual MP3s of songs that they liked to their devices, which makes me sound way older than I think I am. Music blogs would post about new songs or mixtapes and often have free download links embedded in their posts. I used to find pretty much all my music by visiting these blogs constantly and downloading all the new songs I could find. This was a somewhat time-consuming process because I would have to visit each one of these individual sites, find the post that had free download links, and then click the download links to download each song. I found myself wanting something that would just gather all these songs in aggregate, so I could have a bunch of new music without having to go through all the effort of finding it myself. After a bit of searching, I couldn't find anything that did that. Then I realized, wait, I could just try to make this. It was the summer after my second year of college, and I didn't have a job. So I had all the time in the world and nothing to lose. So I got started. Honestly, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, had to learn a new language I'd never used before, and also just learn a bunch of new concepts along the way. But I was so motivated. I had done stuff like, build a copycat of the old Windows game Minesweeper, but I struggled so much with those projects because I just wasn't really that motivated. I was bored. Here, even when I ran into tough parts, I was just so focused on making it happen. And eventually, somewhat to my surprise, I finished. And I ended up with something that I called the Song Bucket. The project died off a long time ago, so unfortunately I don't have a demo to show off here. But from a very old version of my resume, the Song Bucket crawls/scrapes music blogs for legal song downloads, filters them, and uploads them to the server. It also provides user access to mass streaming and downloading songs. As is probably abundantly clear after that whole story, I really cared about this thing. It was something I built purely for myself, and it was that personal element that completely unlocked programming for me. If I hadn't done it, I honestly may have given up on programming entirely. And that to me is the key to coding. Don't focus on trying to learn a language or solving problems online or doing projects that people tell you to do that you aren't very interested in doing. Find something you actually care about, find an element of it you want to fix or improve in a way that would benefit you specifically, and then make something. Now, you might have some questions or concerns, so I've tried to anticipate those with a few pieces of advice. Let's dive into those now. The first is that you're ready now, even if you've never programmed a day in your life. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can do and benefit from this. Let's say you've never programmed before. No problem. Just start small. Start with something that feels simple and approachable. Let's take my music project, for example. Maybe creating something that downloads all these files from all these different websites feels a little overwhelming. Okay? Then let's just start with the first part of that. Let me write some code where all it does is just visits a single one of these websites. Once we've been able to do that, okay, can we identify what looks like, a single post or story in that website's code? And then once we've accomplished that, can we identify what looks like a download link in a single post? With this process, we take, these small building blocks over and over, and sooner than you know it, you'll have yourself a finished project. Honestly, even after all these years of programming, I still find so much benefit in doing solo projects that are just for me. There truly is no better way or motivation to learn. If you want to see a past example of me going through this process myself and how I thought through things, I'll throw a link to a video either here or here. The second piece of advice is to allow yourself to be bad. Allow yourself to make mistakes. I remember for so long, I was way too concerned with doing things the correct or proper way and letting that, fear sort of paralyze me and stop me from ever even getting started. Now, I take a completely different approach. Just get started and keep going. Keep trying to solve problems, keep pushing, just be this sort of bulldozer that just constantly, consistently keeps moving forward. Now, you'll absolutely make mistakes and you'll get stuck, and that's where you learn. You run with the problem and then you search for a solution or you come up with one yourself. Then the next time you run into that problem, you know what to do. Getting good at literally anything just takes iteration and time. And if you don't allow yourself to be bad, you'll never get started in the first place. I may have a pretty well-established career at this point, but when I started, I was terrible. I remember comparing myself to everyone around me and feeling totally inadequate because they were so smart and they were so far ahead of me. I think something that's really important to hear and understand, especially when you're just trying to get the hang of a new skill like programming or even something else, and it's that you are smart enough to do this. You're smart and you're capable. I am really, truly nothing special, so if I can do this, so can you. Honestly, as a bit of a side note, it's part of what I'm finding really fun with making this YouTube channel. My first videos were not good, and I honestly had no idea what I was doing, but I just pushed through it. Similar to what I've done with programming, I'm tweaking my approach little by little with each video. While I'm by no means an expert YouTuber or creator, hopefully you're watching this right now and you think, hey yeah, this actually isn't that bad. That alone is a massive improvement compared to where I started. And hopefully that's something you can imagine for yourself, 9 months into your programming journey. The next piece of advice is that code isn't magic. For me, this was a really fundamental shift that my brain went through as I was doing this music project. Before, when I was trying to learn how to program, I would see programs as these crazy things that would, throw a bunch of arbitrary instructions together and somehow that would all pop out like, a game or a website. I would try to learn specific things about a language in isolation. Like, I would read about lists and this is how you add an element to a list, or I would learn about this is how you combine two strings together. What really changed my perspective was starting to understand that code was a way for you to communicate to the computer how you want to solve problems. Instead of English or Spanish or Hindi or whatever language you speak, you're now using Python or Java or whatever other programming language to tell the computer what to do. Now, instead of typing out random parts of the language that would do maybe hopefully what I wanted it to do, I was translating, hey, I want to find a post with a download link into open this website, search for this pattern that identifies a post, and then search for this pattern that identifies a download link. I was no longer typing and hoping, but rather giving the exact instructions that I needed the computer to do in order for it to solve my mini sub-problems. The final bit of advice is that doing this could lead to some unexpected benefits to your career. Obviously, the hope with this is that you're able to learn how to program, but let's say you're applying to a job. This could very well be the difference for you in whether you get interviews or not, especially if it's clear that this is a project that is unique and personal to you rather than something that everyone else is out there doing. This is actually exactly how it worked out for me. I think I mentioned earlier in this video that I did this the summer after my second year of college and that I didn't have a job. The reason I didn't have a job is because, honestly, I couldn't get one. I submitted my resume everywhere, but no one cared. I barely got any interviews. I went into the summer with no plans, while so many others I knew had jobs lined up waiting for them. Once I finished my project and put it on my resume, interviews just started pouring in. Off the top of my head, amongst others, Facebook, Amazon, and Yahoo all interviewed me, and Facebook and Amazon gave me offers. I recognize the market right now is particularly tough, but whenever I could actually communicate with these companies, and trust me, I would show my demo as many places as I possibly could, the response was generally quite positive. I don't think this career benefit should be your only driver. Remember, at the end of the day, this should be something that you actually care about building and working on, but you might be surprised at how it helps. And that about wraps this up. Hopefully you find this framework useful and I was able to address some comments and concerns, but feel free to drop any thoughts or comments down below if there's anything else you think I might be able to help with. I'm also toying around with the idea for maybe doing a step-by-step tutorial of how I built that project I mentioned earlier, so feel free to let me know if that would be interesting to you. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos from me. See you all another time.